Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of the Node CI subproject. Today is October 6th, 2021, and the first item on our agenda is the kubetest 2 migration plan. Take it away.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I am Amit. My GitHub handle is Amwat, and I work mostly with the SIG testing folks. And I primarily work on kubetest 2 and kind. And so here I'm about to talk about the kubetest 2 migration plans and what it means for SIG Node and node testing in general. So just to add a bit of context, I'm not sure if everyone is aware of all the layers that are involved in running a test in CI, but just a quick or just to give a quick overview, there usually we start with the image that we provide in the ProwJob configuration, and it has a bunch of pre-existing test infra tools in it called all the way starting from Bootstrap to scenarios and then kubetest itself. So kubetest v1, which is developed from test infra, has all the testing related information about how to bring up clusters and then subsequently how to run tests on them. Um, so if any of you have been following test infra closely, all of the tools that I mentioned in these layers are deprecated, and they don't have any ongoing features, or they are mostly in maintenance mode where we fix critical bugs that will affect all of CI or something like that. And the reason is it's very, since kubetest itself is a whole bunch of all deployers bundled together, and it initially evolved from literal bash scripts. So it is starting to become unmaintainable, and which is why we developed something called kubetest 2, which is intended to be the replacement for kubetest and is designed in a way that is more extensible. And so one of the ways that it is extensible is we've decoupled the deployment part with the testing part. So you can plug and play which cluster you want to bring up. It may be GCE, it may be GKE, it may be kind or something like that. And then we also decouple what we're testing. So it could be the Ginkgo tester or it could be the Node E2E framework. And so most of the details that I mentioned here are in the KEP linked in the meeting notes. And so if anyone wants to read any have more information, then they can click through to see the KEP. And so obviously there are thousands of jobs involved and are currently using all the deprecated tools that I mentioned previously. And so our goal here is not to remove kubetest anytime soon. We definitely, it's going to be a long drawn out process. And so our goal is not also to quickly switch over all the jobs that we are running in CI, but what we want to do is gradually start moving some of the jobs to kubetest 2. And the subset of tests that we've initially targeted just for the sake of this KEP is the set of Kubernetes pre-submit blocking jobs and the Kubernetes release blocking jobs, which would be like the proof of concept subset of tests that we care most about, obviously. And then obviously any other jobs, we would be leaving it to the individual SIGs to move or migrate whenever they have the bandwidth to do so. And so what we are mainly aiming for here is for firstly just awareness about this project and what the future looks like. So basically any features that you might want to add to kubetest or test infra in general would now be in kubetest 2 instead. And the most critical part that I think SIG-Node would be mostly interested in is the node tester. So previously, the way kubetest used to invoke the node tester is, I think, a hard-coded reference to run remote, the binary which invokes the Node E2E framework. But whereas in kubetest 2, we've tried to make it such that we use the make file as the source of truth. So I'm sure every one of you knows that the node e2e tests have a make file called make test e2e or something along those lines. And that has all the sorts of configuration that lets you determine the specific configuration that you want to run the tests. And so we are planning on using that as the source of truth. So basically kubetest2 itself will just call the make file with the parameters that you pass to it. And so that way, any sort of new additions would be in the make file and KK itself. And like dealing with test infra becomes mostly like if you encounter bugs. And so yeah, that's most of the overview. I don't know if anyone has any specific questions, and be happy to answer that. But yeah, we've started to migrate some of the pre-submit Kubernetes blocking jobs that I mentioned previously. So pull Kubernetes node E2E and pull Kubernetes node E2E container D are two of the jobs that we are currently in the process of migrating. And so right now the they won't be the source of truth. The existing jobs would still be the source of truth, but we are starting to add them as optional jobs that you can run, and then eventually we'll make the switch where once we make sure that both the tests have the same greenness, we will make the switch where we start using the kube test 2 job as the source of truth in pre-submits. And so yeah, that's most of the overview of kube test 2, how node testing would look like in the future. So if anyone, we definitely want SIG Node to be on board and like have input on this. So yeah, if anyone had any questions, yeah, I can take them now, or you can also open up issues or something like that.
That seems mostly reasonable to me. The only question I really have is sig node aren't the only people who use the E2E node test runner.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if the way that we run things like the C-advisor integration tests is exposed via hack test ET node and the make file. Um, so there might be some like
Mhm.
frustrating work to do there.
Yeah,
But I don't think we particularly maintain that.
um, yeah. So in that case, I would say we definitely can add more features to the node tester. So like where makefile is just one of the ways we run the like most common node E2E test framework that we run in CI. But if there are some tests that we run like in a different way, the C advisor tests, we can add more features to the kubetest 2 node tester.
Cool.
Awesome. Um, so yeah, I can always, if there are any more questions, feel free to open issues in either test infra or the kubetest 2 repo.
So, I
So,
mean, sorry for a late question. What is the timeline? When do you think like some changes? We will see some changes. We'll start seeing it.
so in terms of timeline, we have scoped in the cap, we've scoped it, as I mentioned, to the Kubernetes pre-submits and release blocking jobs. And so we are looking at 124 to at least do the switch, at least have the jobs enabled. And so even if we might not make the source of truth change, we would at least have the jobs running optionally in the background to make sure that both the jobs, there's no discrepancy between the jobs. So yeah, that's mainly the timeline, at least in terms of the cap. Obviously, in terms of completely migrating all the jobs, I don't have a strict timeline there. It's mainly going to depend on how much effort each SIG or how much bandwidth each SIG has to start making migration. And we'll definitely have a guide where we publish the most common use cases of how kubetest is being used currently and how what the migration will look like, so that it's easier to start migrating, that anyone who is interested can start migrating jobs. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, let's move to the next topic. Francesco, are you here?
I think he's not able to attend today.
Let's move it to the next time. Okay, yeah, I wanted to revisit this one. So what we found is one of the jobs started failing recently on, I mean, I think pre-submit jobs kept working and the periodic start failing. And we found that this was caused by bad image from published by Ubuntu. So the Ubuntu image, like since we're using latest, so in our job definition, we have LTS version image instead of specific version. Then we pick up any last updated version, like a last updated Ubuntu image from a job. And
Oh, I thought
that
these needed
is,
to be pinned. So these are apparently not pinned, is what I'm learning today.
yeah, this wasn't pinned because we decided, I mean, I remember we had this document presented for CORS. I mean, it's for CORS, but it's the same for a similar thing for Ubuntu can be applied. We've been discussing what to do here, and we've been discussing whether we want to pin in image or just use LTS. And I think agreement at the time was that specifying image family is just eliminate so much toil that we just do that. And at the time we didn't see many failures when new image appears. But I think we may reconsider that and start pinning images. I don't know what it involves from from test infra perspective. Like, is there some automation that will help us pin images and update periodically? So I'm curious if anybody knows that. Like, I mean, one decision we can make is to keep keep the image family definition, and just like next time it will happen, we will just pin again and unpin when new version appears. Or we need to investigate whether we can pin and how to how the jobs will be updated and who will be updating those. Does anybody know the process, or does anybody know any more details?
I'm not sure if this is feasible, but we could have a job that monitors new images and notifies if a new image is available. So in that way, we keep the control on, we have a pinned image and we do not use a new one until we make sure that it works. But also we get notified and we don't have to.
We have a bunch of we probably write a bot that like PRs the new image in, and then a human just has to review it.
Yeah, we already have that. I think the problem is, one of the problems I see with that is when it's a PR for test infra, not to Kubernetes. So you cannot test PR for test infra. So like, I don't know what, like how this bot works. If it does test every job, then yeah, that definitely solves the problem.
Well, that's effectively already happening right now, right? It's just that we'd be able to pinpoint it to a specific commit where we bumped the image and then it broke everything.
There's also the thing of, like, regardless of which one we choose, we need to make it consistent across our PR jobs and periodics, because having them differ just means we don't see things like this.
Yeah, my 2 cents, I think we should, like before, I think a while ago, we pinned images and without any automation, and the result was basically things got stale pretty fast and nothing got updated. So I think we should either, continue using image family and maybe just keep an eye on the images, or have some automation in place where we keep updating it. Because I think if we just pin the image, things are just going to go stale again because it's too much manual effort to go in and update the images everywhere.
Could we run
Okay.
a subset of the tests to validate that the image is working, and then have maybe an automated PR to make this change?
I mean, it already exists. Some form of it already exists for pre-submit, so we just need to understand how it works and whether we can write the same automation. Does anybody wants to go investigate, or we like? I mean, we can revert to image family for now and like postpone this problem, or we can like, if anybody wants to investigate and go dig into that, please
Do we
speak
have
out.
an issue filed for this?
We just repurpose this issue, I think.
Can we actually have a dedicated issue for it? Because I think for now we can revert and actually not rush to solve this. Because it's two kind of separate.
Okay.
I agree.
Mostly also much more likely to be picked up by someone because it'll have a, relevant title.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take care of that.
But this issue is for test info or is for SIG Node, actually?
I think for both, we can mention both. From our perspective, we need to tell which jobs to use which images, and SIG testing can help us to automate the updates.
Yeah, if it's a broader problem, I assume this is a broader problem outside of just Node. So filing it in a place where other people might see it and go, oh, we need this thing too, is probably helpful.
Yeah, one of the problems with this automation is somebody with very wide permissions needs to update and merge this PR, like approve and merge this PR. So, I mean, typically, I think Aaron was doing it most of the time. So we may like, I mean, it is important for us to write the same kind of train of automation. Otherwise, we may be lacking permissions and we may delay updates of images. Okay, I'll write it down in the issue and we can take care of it. By the way, Mike, do you know if new Ubuntu image doesn't have this problem any longer? Can we revert it already?
I believe they haven't fixed the bug on that one. We should probably wait. As soon as I get some more updates on that, I'll let you know.
Okay, I can assign issue to revert to you.
Sure.
Thank you.
The fact that that did get released leaves me with some questions about how Ubuntu's images get published.
It's a fair question. We can follow up with Canonical to see what's going on. So next topic, I wanted to like I wrote this document about SIG Node test cleanup. Again, more you dig, more you go deep into investigation, how tags were historically used and what's the meaning, more you understand it and more untangled it is. So there is a small TLDR of proposed solution and some explanation below why this is a proposed solution. I can go through all the topics today, or we can read it offline. I don't know which one you prefer. Maybe I can go through TLDR really quickly, and then the rest of the document will be for offline reading.
That sounds good.
Okay. So today, feature is declared in SIG testing as a and feature semantic indicate that that's something that is not working on all environments, or it needs special setup for CI. So it's kind of confusing definition because I mean the feature indicates both situation when it's like wouldn't work on like specific installation, or like it's alpha feature, for instance, or it will not work on specific environment because it's just a like it needs a special like configuration, like AppArmor config file or like runtime class to be configured. So both of the situations are covered by feature flag, and it's very confusing. I think this may need to be cleaned up. So we need to, I think feature should indicate that whether feature will work on all environments. And if it doesn't work on all environments, so it's marked as a feature. So people can say like, I don't want to test this feature on my environment because it just simply doesn't work. And then sometimes we need to indicate that feature requires special configuration for CI. And in this case, I suggest we introduce a special tag that will, like, we already have special tag introduced in one of the documents called not special feature, which exactly this meaning that it requires special configuration and environment to run. But it wasn't used consistently first, and it wasn't officially documented. So I suggest just to make it high level, like testing wide special tag. But clearly it needs to be double checked with SIG testing if they agree with that. Then another thing, not feature and feature, they semantically the same. Not feature indicate that something will not work on all container runtimes or all like distributions of Kubernetes, and feature meaning pretty much the same. The problem is that today, all our CI jobs are query by not feature for focus, mostly because all our container runtime support all the features, all the not features. So like if only we had like more fragmented support of not features in like, let's say containerd and cryo has like very different supported set of not features, then we unlikely will query by all not features any longer. We will like, I mean, it wouldn't make sense to query by not features because you want to test specific features that you support. Unfortunately, it's not the case, today, or like fortunately. So since it's the same semantic, I suggest to merge not feature and feature. And if you remove in future, if situation will change in node run, like container runtimes will support less and less features, or like it will be very fragmented, then we can change the definition and like stop querying by not feature any longer, or by feature to that sense.
Sorry, Danielle, you go first.
Do we know if other container runtimes that aren't officially supported by Node rely on the Node test suite?
I don't think we know one way or the other.
Yeah.
My question is, so feature already means something to the rest of tests in like their SIG testing guidance on it. And I see that, and it usually means that like something is an alpha feature and needs to be turned on. So, but here we're talking about introducing a feature gate tag. I don't necessarily have any problems with this proposal, but have we taken this to, is this just like a trial run within this group before we take this to SIG testing? Because I think that we can't unilaterally do this. We have to get everybody else on board. Okay.
Yeah. It's a trial run first, but I mean, I think we discussed parts of it here and there already. And for instance, renaming not feature to feature was proposed by Aaron originally, because like, I mean, it's the same semantic, but then like we discovered that like same semantic, but it's applied differently just because of nature how we used these tags. And I ran some analysis on test cases that we have today, and I think it's safe today to merge them. And if we will keep, it will change semantic a little bit and keep it consistent over time, then it wouldn't be a problem. But again, it's a very fair point that it needs to be run by SIG testing for sure.
Let me check when the next meeting is.
It's always with the same time as SIG Node meeting. It was yesterday, and I couldn't attend that. So maybe in 2 weeks I will go into SIG testing instead of SIG Node.
I have another question that's mostly about the special tag. In the a large portion of the Node test suite makes a lot of assumptions about the host it's running on. And I don't necessarily know how we would apply that. Like, are you talking about doing things like special GPU or like special like low memory or something similar to that, or just like, otherwise I can imagine like every node test quickly ending up being tagged special.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, ideally, every test needs to provide requirements, how it needs to run, like what it requires from environment. It may be too expensive to require it right now. So I think special in this sense is some extra configuration we expect that was additionally added to the node, like test handlers that test runtime handler, like runtime class that called test handler was added to the environment. It is tested like across all the environments that we currently support in open source, in kind and GCE, but it was intentionally made to enable this test. So change into environment was made to enable this test, so it deserves a flag special, I think. If it's just a specification of a VM that we run on, and we know that all our tests run on these VMs, I think it's fine. We have performance to distinguish like more powerful VMs from less powerful VMs.
Are we even like using the node special feature? Like, I know obviously there are things that have them defined, but are we using it in test infra anywhere? Because like, I mean, this might be all a much ado about nothing if we're not actually using them. And I have not had a chance to look at. Like, this is something we could verify pretty quickly with the spreadsheet.
A quick rip grab suggests that we do. Mostly in.
Is it already filtered?
Mostly for skipping skipping tests.
Yeah, but they don't have any. Oh, sorry.
Which jobs do that? Like, other than the things that like just skip them all. Like, what I'm trying to find what tests they are. Special.
Tell you in a minute. Here we go. Not special feature. Create a batch of pod latency resources. So it's benchmark tests.
And also the huge pages test.
I feel like, so huge pages maybe makes sense. Benchmark maybe makes sense. Node special feature is a really weird way to, or like special is a really weird way to specify that. They could probably just have their own tags, which have nothing to do with special. I'm trying to find
the problem
filter for
I see is
special.
runtime class. I think runtime class is supposed to be working on everywhere. And the problem is that, I mean, we mark runtime class as feature to indicate that it needs special environment. And I don't think it has to do that. We can't just do like, it should be conformant like runtime class. But then we need to indicate that this test needs a special environment so people can
Well, the benchmark ones already say benchmark on them. So.
And huge pages is also tagged feature huge pages.
Yeah.
And also, I think separately also tagged huge pages.
Yeah. So the huge pages stuff, basically, like if those are the only two things that have special on them, why don't we just get rid of special and like deal with it case by case? Because I can't think of anything where we would need like a special selector and want to actually get all of the things. I think each one we would want to deal with differently. And maybe like the issue is that we do want to like be able to find all of the special things, but like I don't know that this is actually very helpful right now for that organization. So
there are some tests that currently get skipped by nature of like the test itself, things like GPU and device tests that might warrant some kind of tagging to like, you know, save on like CI cost. as opposed
Yes.
to running every test on a GPU node all of the
Yes.
time.
But I don't think we would use like node special for that.
No.
So,
So as far as I can tell, the only ones that have.
So how do we change runtime class tests? So runtime class is supposed to be conformance, I think. I mean, not conformance. And then if it's conformance, how do we indicate it needs special environment?
The only 5 things on your list that are tagged node special feature are huge pages, supposedly. At least according to the like filter graph thing. I think there are maybe a few more, like the benchmark test also came up.
Codebase. And it's huge pages plus benchmark.
Yeah. I think it's just those 2. So for the runtime class ones, we're already not using that, so we don't need to start using it.
If you want to make it like, if you want to clean it up and say like, we cannot just rename not feature to feature for runtime class because it's not a, I mean, yeah. The problem
feature
is
already supposed to skip things by default. So that's not necessarily a wrong way to describe these.
Yeah, but we want to test runtime class on all environments, right? We want to make sure that runtime class keeps working.
Yeah, but we need special infrastructure for them. So we won't be able to do that without a separate job, right?
No, I mean, all our jobs pre-configure test handler. It's fine. I mean, it's special in the sense that if you run on some other environments, then you need to configure test handler. If you're running on our CI, it's all pre-configured test handler out of the box just for everything because it's cheap.
I'm not understanding why this needs special.
Yeah, no, I don't think we need this. Like, I don't think it's worth including a tag for 3 tests. Given that they all have very different reasons for needing something else. Like, I think handling it case by case, and then when we have enough tests with weird cases, we come and think about this problem with more data.
It's fair. But what would be the ideal way to handle runtime class tests? Do we want to mark it somehow?
Well, we're already handling them somehow, right?
It's handling it poorly. Like it's not feature, but we already query by not feature, and we don't indicate that it needs a special environment. We don't mark it as feature today.
And we also don't mark that eviction tests need you to have like very specific memory setups, or that like a bunch of the test suite breaks even if you allow kubelet to run with swap. Like there are so many cases like this that we've never worried about solving before, and solving them without going and like actually auditing all of the tests isn't gonna really solve the problem. Like in the case of runtime class,
so in runtime class, we need to either tell that it's supported by everybody, but it needs special environment, or then we mark it as feature, or we saying that it's not supported by every distribution. Well,
we have all sorts of things. It's not a matter of distribution or not, right? Like can you run this with standard CI infra? Do you need a special configuration, or do you need special hardware? Those are all separate things. So like benchmark is a special configuration, maybe special hardware. Swap is a special configuration, does not necessarily need special hardware. GPUs need special hardware. They don't necessarily need a special configuration.
They need both.
Yeah.
Well, they need both. Okay, so most of these things, like they're either, I think it's going to be rare that you would need special hardware but not a special configuration. So it's either you need a special configuration, or you need both a special configuration and special hardware.
And we already had like many of those cases, like with pre-existing tags, like performance disruptive, like Linux only, there is another tag that proposed like Windows containerd as opposed to Windows Docker shim.
So Linux
yeah.
only is a conformance tag. So it has like a specific meaning for conformance. So I think it's good to standardize on those things as long as they're consistent.
Yeah, it's already standardized. So yeah, I see the point. Like, I wanted to introduce special tag is like extra. Like, if nothing of this is working, just mark it as special so people pay attention. And maybe in test definition we can explain why it's special, like what special is required. And yeah, so alternative is to make it somehow like just have unique tag for every situation like that. So runtime class will be marked as like runtime handler required tag, and then you can query by that. So that might be an alternative.
Yeah, like, and then we'll mark GPUs with GPU.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Or like if it's specifically that we need like special hardware for the tests, we could like mark them as hardware blah. And then anytime we have a test in for config with that hardware, we pull in those tests. Mostly I'm just like, we're already in this situation where we have like lots and lots and lots of these tags and nobody seems to know what, like they weren't properly documented. And I think people are using them inconsistently. So like, even if everybody within this smaller group knows what they mean, a SIG Node approver might not realize that, oh, but this test has like this hardware requirement. So like these tests should have been tagged this way. They go ahead and approve it. And like, then we end up with drift anyways. So I think it behooves us to try to make the surface area as small as possible. Otherwise, we're just going to end up in this situation again, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that catch-all special may be not in yours. I thought it may make things easier. You just mark the special and then add a comment about it. Yeah, okay, it's fine. Let's see. I mean, we can start without special. We don't have that many cases anyway. Okay, thank you.
I think generally as part of reviewing test changes, we should start being a bit more strict about asking for people to document their expectations of how a test will run. Mostly because right now you have to basically reverse engineer every test that fails to be like, okay, what does this need? What aren't we giving it? Or is the feature broken?
I think also we should ensure that like, so this has been a problem where I've seen people add end-to-end tests that don't run in CI ever. Like they're not getting pulled in by any of the existing jobs. And sometimes they need a special configuration. And previously, I think some reviewers were a little bit like lax about this and would just merge those tests because it was an alpha feature or whatever. And then as soon as you try to turn the tests on, they were all failing, like they never worked. I'd like to avoid those sorts of things as much as possible. We've been doing better about this as a SIG in previous releases, but I think that would also be a good requirement to have, is if you add a new end-to-end test, it has to run in that PR to demonstrate that it works. If you need special hardware and whatnot, that means you have to go and set up your job in advance.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, next thing is not conformance. I thought that I can avoid solving not conformance problem by like when I talk about feature and not feature, but it turned out not conformance was originally, I mean, well, a few documents about not conformance, but I think the main point for not conformance was to indicate that this is a feature that this functionality, like let's avoid word features, that works everywhere. So it's supposed to be working. If you want to test your runtime, run not conformance at least, and everything else is optional. Yeah, so not conformance is kind of opposite to feature or not feature. And we cannot, so today we don't apply not conformance to some test cases that some test cases we have doesn't have neither not feature nor not conformance, which make it very hard to query. So when you design a job, like we have jobs that runs also not conformance, and we have jobs that runs all the features, but we don't have jobs that runs everything that have neither, except yeah. So yeah, I suggest we start applying not conformance a little bit more often, and one controversial thing about node conformance is whether to apply node conformance to beta features, because beta features that are designed to be working everywhere and enabled out of the box, supposedly we can just mark them as node conformance. If you don't mark them as node conformance, and we don't mark them as node feature because it's not a special environment or anything, then they lack in any tags to query by, and that makes them undiscoverable. So I think we should apply node conformance to beta features as well.
The name being conformance makes that probably a bit scary for people making those PRs. But
Yeah,
otherwise,
so-
probably a good idea. Just, conformance is a big scary word that means things to people. And we're not great at it.
Yeah, we got the feedback from the conformance subproject in SIG architecture that they don't like us using the conformance name because conformance has a specific meaning and this confuses it because this means a different thing than what they're using conformance to mean. I agree that we should document what we mean it to be. We may also need to change the name.
Okay.
Like, I think all of that is good. It's just that we've definitely gotten that feedback multiple times before.
Yeah, well, didn't we have like a whole document where we like suggested a new name for it and then didn't make the change?
Yes, because the thing that we suggested was CRI conformance, and that's also not really true.
I thought there was
Yeah.
another suggestion that wasn't conformance.
No
We've
idea
talked
this,
about this
but yeah,
before. I'm sure
I
it's in
can
the
I can dig
notes.
up this document for sure. It's yeah, not the feature. Okay, and then I want to have feature gate that is orthogonal to feature or not conformance, because what we discover recently, like for example, like exact prop timeout on some environments, exact prop timeout is set to false because we like still migrating customers. And that causes all sorts of issues because it's really hard to filter tests because they already GA, so they already kind of conformance tests or not conformance tests, node conformance test, and but they still protected by feature gate. So having ability to filter test out by feature gate would be very useful. Plus, what we also what I also noticed that we never test Kubernetes with all the feature gates disabled, which may indicate which may uncover some problems when like somebody took a dependency on beta feature and without beta feature nothing working, and this is not ideal. So I think feature gate will help in these situations as well. We can just run all the tests with filter out by feature gate and run all the other tests that doesn't require any feature gates and make sure that it's still working. So yeah, so I suggest that we introduce this feature gate flag. I don't know whether, like, do you have any opinions?
For alpha, don't we already have this? For like node alpha feature, node beta feature and stuff. I know, I think we just have node alpha feature.
We never use node beta feature. We have node alpha feature applied inconsistently.
Yeah, the use
but
is
we
very
don't query by that.
inconsistent.
Yeah.
People are also bad at updating those when they graduate features.
They basically do not graduate them. So like I've seen, I think we have a number of things. Mike Miranda put together an issue where like we saw that we have a bunch of things that are like, there are I think some things with GA that still had feature on them, which shouldn't have been the case. So yeah, we need to definitely take like feature tags off of things generally when they're like, I think the typical usage is feature means alpha feature. So
And it's very confusing for people, like why.
yes.
Yeah, so feature gate may solve this problem. And I mean, we can make it strongly typed. We can just have a helper method that use feature gate actual tag to as a tag to the test.
Yeah, as long as we're consistent about it, and as long as we audit them semi-regularly, by which I mean every time we do a release, sounds good to me.
Okay. Yeah, and this is what run all the tests with feature gates of. Anyway, this is a proposal. Sorry, I took longer than I expected, but very good feedback. I really appreciate it. Okay. Any other feedback?
No, that was great, Sergey. Thanks for spending all that work on that. That spreadsheet was like super useful, and I think that it will be very helpful when we take stuff to like SIG testing or talk to conformance or that kind of thing.
Yeah, I will keep updating it. I mean, I have a small tool that generates CSV file. Anyway, okay, Mike, do you want to take next one?
Sure. I want to bring this up to this group since it's considerably small. It might be Python related, but I'm not sure if you're aware of Oktoberfest. This is an annual event that occurs. It's organized by DigitalOcean, and the idea
we
is
are
to.
aware.
Oh, perfect.
I sort of preempted you. So Hacktoberfest has kind of been. I'm surprised that I haven't been able to find an issue because I know that there's been a lot of discussion. I might have to go hunt through Slack. So like we have explicitly opted out of and asked them like multiple times, do not feature us, do not talk about our project, because what happens is we get all of the we get just this wave of really low quality contributions, like people changing a word in a readme kind of thing, like just one word, and like it's wrong, and we just get I think we've previously gotten like hundreds of those PRs, and it takes so much work for the maintainers to go and close them all. So previously, like project wide, we've kind of agreed we want nothing to do with Hacktoberfest. Like it would be great if it got us high quality contributions, but generally it hasn't. And I think there's also like kind of more, we would have to do some work as a project in order to be able to like sort of, I guess, get in the Hacktoberfest spirit and like have some issues like, labeled for like, yeah, this would be a reasonable thing. But like not to completely suck the wind out of your sails, we're not really doing anything as a SIG right now to like systemically go and try to like mark things as help wanted or like reasonable first issues and that kind of thing. We do a little bit of like bug triage, but then we don't necessarily go back and say like, hey, this seems like a good thing for a beginner to look into. Like we're trying to now do that as issues are coming in. But if you see like specific, cleanup work that could be relatively easily done by a new contributor, or like feature work as part of a cap or like that kind of thing, like go ahead and label those things as like seeking new contributors, because people definitely they snap those up right away.
Yeah, because I recently had an interaction with one contributor that made a pull request and then requested for a label, Hacktoberfest. And I believe the contribution was significant enough that it deserves it. But also I didn't find a way to enable this label.
Yeah, no t-shirt for him or her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so we do not participate.
Okay.
There is no Hacktoberfest label, and I mean, if you want more context, in the GitHub management channel, here, I'll put this in the Zoom chat as opposed to the agenda. Like, here's a thread where someone's like, so have we explicitly opted out? Like, we hope that they won't pester us again, but like, we really want nothing to do with this. So.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, and I mean, I've also done this kind of collaborations that are really worthless. but yeah, I mean, just to make sure, so I can actually reject the request from this contributor.
Yeah, the problem is I don't think we have anything official, but maybe you can use that thread in GitHub management to like ask for something official that we can point to.
Yeah,
like a bunch of, it looks like a bunch of searching for Hacktoberfest on the Kubernetes Slack, it looks like a bunch of random projects that aren't necessarily Kubernetes core do participate in Hacktoberfest, but Kubernetes itself does not. So.
Yeah, definitely. I'll put the conversation and see if we can get something official.
The barrier to making like meaningful contributions, and Kate's is pretty high too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Makes-
agree with that.
Like you could spend most of Hacktoberfest learning how to run a test suite effectively. Like,
Yeah, I think there. Yeah, I'll request some more formal communication, and then I'll just decline the request. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for bringing it up. I think we only have a few minutes left for looking at the dashboard. Is there something interesting to look at?
This one just got triaged today. I took a look at this. So this is, I think, this is an API review thing. It's not really necessarily a CI
So not
subgroup thing.
much
They're
testing.
specifically API validation tests. So I forgot. I think if I
Okay.
haven't tagged this one label API review, I should. This is an API review thing. Also, oh my god, this looks so much better.
Okay, so this is we probably need to remove the C advisor push job. David replied here that it's not needed. Anybody wants to take a stab and just, I mean, it's a removable job. It should be easy.
I can follow up with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
I think we discussed this arrays detected.
I don't know if we have. This is quite old. We might have discussed this when I was. Oh, I was gonna say we might have discussed this while I was out of office, but it wasn't on the board. So
Yeah, we discussed it on previous SIG Node CI meeting, and nobody wanted to take it. I don't know if still anybody wants to take a look at unit tests. Okay, then. And I think, yeah, I don't know the status of this one. We back to, yeah, it was a temporary spike, didn't caused by any like PRs or anything, and it went back by itself. So I think we will need to
oh, I
close
guess we
it.
can close it.
Yeah,
Maybe include a screenshot of the graph.
I
Oh, you
already
already
did
have one.
last time.
Weird. Maybe this was one of those things where there was a regression in the image, and since we're using latest, it just kind of came in and then went away.
I don't know what they use for performance. But yeah, if they use latest, then it will be the same situation, right? Okay, then yeah, and we at that time. Anything else today? Next time we will prioritize bug triage, since we didn't have much time this time.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you everybody. Bye bye.
thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, folks.